I give some modifications to the vocabulary, the glossary, on page 110, following pages. Okay, the word abhuta, A-B-B-H-U-T-A. The middle two meanings, astonishing, marvelous, those are the better meanings. On page 111, the word adana at the top. Also taking, the word anisangsa. First, the M in the word, it should have a dot under it. And then a good meaning, a better meaning is benefit. And going down towards the middle of the page, kilisati. You could put is defiled or is afflicted. Then gota, the word gota means something like clan. Then towards the bottom, pai rupasati. Okay, associates is all right, but also serves, attends upon. Like a disciple, pai rupasati, his teacher. Disciple attends upon his teacher. Then the word, you see this word, pariplava pasada. Here the word pariplava means unsteady, wavering. And pasada means, one meaning is tranquility, but it also has another meaning of trust or confidence. That's the actually more important meaning in Buddhism. Something like faith. Similar to faith, but not exactly the same. Then the word saveti, which means announces, tells, declares. That is a causative form from the verb sunati, which means to hear, to listen. Saveti is to make hear. In other words, to announce or declare. Okay, let us come to the grammar now. The grammar is on page 113. Okay, the masculine I stems, these you just have to learn. There's a paradigm there. Okay, the third person imperative. Usually when we think of imperative, we think it's always second person. You do this, you do that. But in Pali there is imperative for first person, let me do this, let us do that. Then the second person is you, singular, do that, or you, plural, do that. Then the third person is let him do this, let her do that, let them do that. And as the note, the text explains in Pali, when one speaks respectfully to a person, one doesn't say you do this or you do that, but you make it a request. It's something like Jing Wan. Let one do this, let one do that. Like in the example, Dese tu bhante bhagava dhammam. One doesn't say to the Buddha, speak the Dhamma, but Venerable Sir, let the Blessed One speak the Dhamma. Okay, page 114, my favorite grammatical point. The locative absolute. Bye-bye. Did you read the explanation here? Do you understand it? Understand? Is it understandable? Or should I re-explain it? Okay. Okay, in many sentences, we want to state that two things are going on at the same time, and we use two clauses, two phrases, with different subjects. Okay, while mother is cooking dinner, Junior is watching television. Okay, so in English we make a statement like that. We use the word while to indicate the subordinate phrase. While this is taking place, that is taking place. In Pali, the way this is done is by putting the subordinate phrase in the locative case. There are two ways that the locative absolute is used. Okay, the principle of use. Two phrases, or two actions with different subjects, either going on at the same time, in which case the subordinate phrase uses present participle, or one action takes place when the other is finished. In this case, in this instance, the subordinate action is put in the past participle, but in the locative. They don't, unfortunately, the authors, they didn't give like full sentences, they just give little phrases as examples. But I found one here. Turn to page 175 in the textbook. This is from the first discourse of the Buddha, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. Actually, we find both examples just on the same page. One right after the other. Good. Okay. Towards the third paragraph from the bottom, imasmin chappana vayakaranasmin. Do you see that? Okay, I will read it. Imasmin chappana vayakaranasmin banyamane. Okay, imasmin, that's the locative of imang, or ayam, this. Vyakarana means explanation. And banyamana, that is the present participle, which means being spoken. So the sense of the sentence is, while this exposition was being spoken in the Venerable Kondanyo, Ayasmato Kondanyasa Virajang Vitamalang Dhammacakkum Udapadi, the dustless, stainless vision of the Dharma arose. Okay, now the main phrase in this sentence is for the Venerable Kondanyo, the dust-free, stainless vision of Dhamma arose. So that is the subject here. Dhammacakku is put in the nominative. But this action or this event takes place at the same time that the discourse is being spoken. So that phrase, while this discourse or while this explanation was being spoken, that is put in the locative. You see, imasmin is locative. Vayakaranasmin, that's the subject of this phrase, is locative. And banyamane is what part of speech? What part of speech? Banyamane? Present participle. So in English we would say, while this explanation was being spoken for Venerable Kandanyo, the dust-free, stainless vision of Dhamma arose. But in Pali, instead of using a word like while, they just put the whole phrase in the locative. So the subject of that locative phrase is locative. That's Vayakaranasmin. The pronoun that goes with it, imang, becomes imasmin. That is locative. And then the present participle, banyamane, is locative. So when you see this, you have to be careful and realize that this is not, though it's a locative case, but it doesn't mean have a locative function. Okay, then very convenient. Any questions about that? In the readings, when we come across examples, then I'll point them out. Okay, now just below, very conveniently, the next sentence, or next paragraph, is also a locative absolute with a past participle. Pavatite chapana bhagavata dhammacakye bhuma deva saddam anusavesum. Okay, here the locative absolute phrase is what comes first. Pavatite chapana bhagavata dhammacakye. Dhammacakye means wheel of Dhamma, and pavatita means set, put in motion, set rolling. So when the wheel of Dharma had been set in motion, Bhagavata, by the Blessed One, that's the subordinate phrase. Bhuma Deva, that's the earth gods, the deities who live close to the earth. Saddam, they gave a sound, they made a sound, or they emitted a sound. Okay. Yeah. The verb is anusavesum. Yeah. Yeah. You have to break up. Here there's what's called a sandhi. It's saddam. Saddam is sound. I think it's shang. Shang. Actually, savesam here is actually the same as this savesi, to announce, to declare, except the anu just gives a sense of repetition. Maybe they're repeating it over and over. Yeah, this is the aorist ending. Plural, aorist, third person plural. Okay. You have to get used to the locative absolute. But I'll point these examples out when we come across them. The next one, the forms of vach, you just have to learn. But you don't have to memorize the entire paradigm. But the main, most common is avocha is very common. Avocha and avochung. Avocha you get over and over. Bhagava eta devocha. Bhagava eta devocha. The Blessed One said this. Okay, then this word bhavant. When again, this is something you just have to learn to recognize. It's the word bhavant. It has a sense of venerable one or sir, master. It's a kind of respectful address. So very often we get the Brahmins speaking about the Buddha as Bhavang Gautama, the Honorable Gautama. And then they might speak to him as Bhavantang Gautamang. I said to the Honorable Gautama, Bhoto Gautamasa. You just have to be able to recognize these forms when you come across this word, when you come across it. Then the verb, number 6, nivesaye. I think that's an optative form. Anyway, there's this interchangeability between E and AYA in certain verb stems. Nivesaye in this reading. Thus nivesaye. Yeah, I see why. We have nivesati. Okay, so this is the stem. But then we get the optative, nivesaye. So how does this IA appear? That's because this E turns into AYA. But then to form the optative, turns into an E. That's an optative ending. Number 7, these are just small points. Tena samayena means it's an instrumental, but in English we would say at that time or on that occasion. Then the verb vachati takes the accusative. In English we say he said to me, he said to the Buddha. But in Pali the object is the accusative. Bhagavantang eta devoce. Okay, next page, 8. This word atta, which has the sense of meaning or purpose, often occurs in the dative case in a compound to mean for the sake of, for the purpose of. Like we have yanyataya, which means for the purpose of a sacrifice. I wish they gave some more examples. Maybe we could come across more examples as we go along. But you should just bear this in mind. So it's the noun atta in the dative case occurring as the second member of a compound has the meaning for the sake of, for the purpose of. Okay, now the point 9, the noun kama. Kama normally has the meaning desire, but often it has the meaning sensual pleasure, and sometimes the meaning sensual desire. But it also has a more general meaning of desire. And then sometimes it's used as the second member of a compound. It gets joined to the infinitive of a verb. The final ung, M of the infinitive drops off, and comma gets added to it to make the compound, like here they just give one example. Gantu kamo. Ahang bhagavantang dasanaya gantu kamo. Here I, and now that compound, gantu kamo, it has to be, since it's describing I myself, it has to be declined in the same way as the ahang, so it becomes the nominative singular. Ahang gantu kamo. I desire to go Bhagavantang dasanaya. Literally, I desire to go for seeing the Blessed One. or I am desirous of going to see the Blessed One. If it's a woman speaking, as in the second example, the gantu kama has to be declined as a feminine singular. So ahang bhagavantang dasanaya gantu kama. The kama is feminine singular. Okay, then the sun, notes on the sandhi. Yeah, just when you have a final a, joined with another vowel, a stronger vowel, often that final a will drop off, and the following stronger vowel will become lengthened. So tuna plus upanita becomes tun upanita. Well, I think because the sound is more distinctive. Yeah. Let us.
Long A is actually more strong, right? And this is
Yeah.
compared to U is strong.
I don't know. Yeah.
And what is?
Okay, maybe the word stronger was the wrong choice. Yeah. Generally, the two vowels will then succeed each other. There won't be a joining. But yeah. Generally, the U will stand followed by the A. But in some exceptional cases, what happens is that the U turns into a V to allow for the sandhi. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we have this. This is in the Burmese transmission of text. You have this atta ko. You might have asta. So what happens is that they turn the O into a V. They join with the A. Atta kvasa. But I think the Sinhalese text would do it this way. They would drop the A and it becomes atta kosa. And then when you have two long A's meeting, then they join and you're left with only one long A. Maha anisansa, maha anisansa.
I guess my question is, say if I don't know, I haven't learned joining of O and Asta.
Yeah.
And I see A or apostrophe as an A.
Yeah.
What makes my not? Why shouldn't I think that a U or E or an A?
Yeah.
Asa. Of course, I would probably guess Asta before I said Asa. Is there any rule that dictates what vowels will stop?
It's pretty complicated, and there's not hard and fixed. In Pali, not absolutely inflexible rules. In Sanskrit, the rules are very strict. In Pali, you can have variations. But let us go to our reading passages. Yeah. Excuse me? Circumflex, that's called. That's mouth. Mouth. Little hat, yeah. Okay. Let us go to a reading passage. Okay, we'll take just the first passage since we're late. This is on page 109. Okay. Attako Venaga Purika Brahmana Gahapatika Yena Bhagavaten Upasan Kamingsu. Okay, this is pretty clear. Okay, then Venapura is a name, must have been the name of a city or town. Do you have the page, Bullet? Okay. It's the top of page 109. So Venagapura must have been the name of a town in India. And those who come from the town of Venagapura are called, the adjective form, Venagapurika. It's like saying somebody from New York is a New Yorker. So then the Brahmin householders from Venagapura, Yena Bhagavaten Upasankamingsu, where the Blessed One was, there they approached. Or in other words, they approached the Blessed One. Upasankamitva appe kache bhagavantang abhivadetva ekamantang nisi dingsu. Okay, so upasankamitva means having approached. What's the name of that form? Gerund. Then this appe kache. Did we meet this before? That means some. It's like api, API, plus a kache. And it indicates that there's going to be a series of some of this, some of that, some of these. Okay, so some Bhagavantang Abhivadetva. Abhivadetva means to pay homage to bow down to. I think it's Li Jing. And they sat down to one side. Ekamantang is ekang, one, plus antang, side. Nisi dingsu is what form of the verb? What form? Right. And what person case? What person? Yeah. Third person, what? Plural. Okay. Appe kache bhagavata sading samodingsu. Sading means what? No, I was waiting for somebody to fall on that throat. It has nothing to do with saddha, meaning faith. Sadding. Excuse me? Right, together with. And samodingsu is right. Samodingsu is to exchange greetings, or to greet. So some exchanged greetings with the Blessed One and sat down to one side. Appe kache nama gotang savetva ekamantang nisi dingsu. Okay, here we have that verb saveti, to announce, to make hear. It's the causative of sunati, to hear. So some announced their nama, that's their mingza, and their gota, that must be shing. Yeah. And sat down to one side. Appe kache tunhi bhuta ekamantang nisi dingsu. Do you know tuni bhuta? What does it mean? Right. So, keeping silent, being silent, they sat down to one side. Ekamantang nisino ko venaga puriko vachagoto brahmano bhagavantang etadavocha. Okay, this nisino is singular masculine. So it has to go with it's describing a single male or an individual male. I don't know whether he's single or married. So it goes with the individual man, Vachagoto, Brahmano, the Brahmin named Vachagota, sitting to one side, Bhagavantang etadavocha. He said this, etad is this, avocha is said. He said this to the Blessed One. Then what comes next, it's very common. Acharyang bo Gotama, abhutang bo Gotama. Acharyang means wonderful. Sir Gotama. Here, bo is an example of that form that we just came across on page 115. It's the vocative form. So, wonderful Master Gotama. Abhutang is like marvelous or astonishing Master Gotama. Yavanchidang Boto Gotamasa Vipassanani Indriyani. Yavan means how much, to what an extent. It's all used together. Yavanchidang. To what an extent. Boto Gotamasa, of Master Gotama, Vipassanani Indriyani. Here, Indriyani means the faculties, I think the sense faculties. And here, Vipassanani, it has nothing to do with Vipassana. It's a different word. It means something like clear or serene. Serene. Tranquil, the dictionary, the glossary gives tranquil, calm, clean, bright, pure. So in other words, his senses seem to be well under control, so they're very clear and pure. Parisuddho chavivano. Parisuddho means pure, fully pure. Chavivano means color of the skin, or we would say complexion. And pariyodato again means clean. And this is typical in Pali. When you have several adjectives describing a noun, the first adjective comes first, the noun comes second, then the other adjectives come after the noun. In English we would say he has clear, pure complexion, or pure, clean complexion. But in Pali you say a pure complexion, clean. Okay, then he gives some examples. I'm getting anxious because many things are going on right now. This Korean doctor, is she waiting for me? Okay, maybe we just have to stop here.